you're feeling stuck in the branding process, or maybe you've had your brand for a few months or even a few years, but it isn't feeling super aligned, I want to share with you three things that might be keeping you from making money online using your authentic brand. Today, I want to dive into three things that I have seen over the past 8 years as a brand strategist, helping clients through my program You Branded and working one-on-one with clients, as well as my own experience with building an online brand. And every time I work with a one-on-one client, they are feeling stuck and they're coming to me for brand support. And we can usually pinpoint it as one of these three things that it's actually keeping them from progressing forward because each of these three things affect their marketing. Now, last week, I shared a video that walks through my signature Build a Better Brand method. It breaks down the various stages of the branding process. If you are just getting started, I highly recommend that you jump into that video either right now, pause this one, open that up, it's linked below, or after completing this video, because it really does give an umbrella view of exactly what you need to build an authentic, aligned, captivating, magnetic, money-making brand. But again, today's video is all about if you're feeling stuck, let's identify something that might be keeping you from moving forward. The first thing that I see happen time and time again is that people are not building their brand from an authentic and aligned place. And let me tell you, this is one of the hardest things to do if you are DIYing your brand. Because oftentimes when we are in the DIY process, which so many of my clients are building their brands themselves with a little guidance from yours truly, when you're in this process, one of the things that often happens is you start to look at other brands for inspiration. In fact, one of the things I tell my clients not to do is to start looking at other people in their industry out of the gate. It's not something that I recommend my clients do until further along in the branding process. Why? Because from my own experience, I started to get wrapped up and lost in what other people were doing. And I started to find myself mimicking or carrying pieces of their brand into my developing brand. And over time, that can actually lead to you removing the authenticity or removing the things that actually are most aligned to you from the branding process. When I first built my brand back in 2016, I had built an entire brand in about 6 months, only to discover that my brand in no way reflected me, my mission, my values. If you know anything about my brand now, I am a big fan of dark, moody colors. My brand at the time was light blue, pink, and gold. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but it wasn't a reflection of me. And today, when you are building a brand online, whether you are selling a product, selling a service, wanting to be more of an influencer or a creator, authenticity absolutely is fundamental, no matter what you sell as the business side of your brand. In fact, we know that 77% of consumers will invest more money into a brand that is authentic. So you're driving up ultimately the amount of revenue and money that you can make in your business by being your most authentic self online. We also know that 85% of millennials and Gen Z prioritize authenticity when it comes to choosing their brands. This is one of the reasons that short form video is so prominent in our consumer buying journey today, because it is a way to peek behind the curtains at what people are like when they are not presenting content online. And so the single step that I encourage my clients to do, if they're looking at their brand and they're seeing that it doesn't feel authentic, that it doesn't feel aligned, that it doesn't feel connected to who they are and their mission and who they ultimately want to serve, is to go back down to the very first step of branding, which is all about identifying your story. And I lead my clients through this process, the story work process, which is something I am known for today on the internet, where we start to dive into who you are. Now, a lot of people come at me and they say, but branding isn't just about you. And I 100% agree. But this fundamental first step, you have to identify who you are as a person. You have to build your brand filter so that as you start to do competitive analysis, as you start to craft your messages, as you maybe start to analyze other content and things that are happening online, you're choosing your colors, all of those different things, you can run them through your authentic brand filter to decide if they are right for you. And like I said, from my own experience and working with hundreds of clients, this happens more times than I would like to admit. People are building their brand from an outside perspective rather than going inward first and building a solid foundation from there. The second thing is that every brand has an ideal customer. Now, this is a really, we'll say, controversial topic online right now. It's right up there with niching down. Because of how the creator economy has progressed over the years, we see a lot of influencers, we see a lot of affiliate type of creators online. And while those are obviously business owners, they are not monetizing their own expertise or their own knowledge. And so having a very specific ideal customer or having a very specific niche isn't as fundamental to their success as it is for those of us that are selling a product or a service or a digital good or a course or even like a budget template. If you are selling something that you yourself have created, it is fundamental that you have an ideal customer, a singular ideal customer to get started. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot expand as your brand grows, as you start to offer different products or different services. There is so much more room for that after you have established yourself as a brand to start. One of the things that I have been kind of experimenting with, and we will be launching really soon, is a product line that really is available to any sort of entrepreneur. But my specific ideal customer for my courses and for my services is going to be more niche specific. Why is that so important? Because it makes your messaging better. There's an old saying that says, if you try to speak to everyone, you will attract no one. And there couldn't be anything that is more true to the branding process. Oftentimes when people come to me and they tell me that their messaging isn't resonating or they're building their audience, but it's all over the place and nobody's buying, or their sales pages aren't converting, I can see pretty quickly that they are lacking clarity on who they are actually speaking to. And a big thing that people do in the branding process is they think that their ideal customer is all about the demographics, but that's actually not what we should be focused on. The demographics are going to help with what I call self-identifiers. Self-identifiers are basically these key demographics of your ideal customer that allow someone to very quickly identify if you are speaking to them or not. That's why we see these demographic type of messages inside of hook statements, early on web pages, maybe in a product description, so that whoever's on that page can quickly say, oh, this is for me or this isn't for me. But the really golden part of ideal customer comes down to the psychographics. What is your ideal customer thinking? What are they really struggling with? What are obstacles that are standing in their way from getting the results that they ultimately want? And what are those results? These are just the 4 main top tier psychographics, but we can always go even deeper. And when we cover these 4 and go even deeper, it's going to improve your messaging. It's going to allow you to speak more specifically to your ideal customer. It's going to allow your ideal customer to feel what you are saying, which is such a fundamental part of the branding process. As I mentioned in last week's video here at Brand Mary, we believe that the final stage of the branding process is all about emotional branding and how your aesthetics and your copy play a role in building an emotional connection with your audience. And this kind of leads me to the third piece of what might be keeping your brand stuck. Now, there's the first part of your business, which I truly believe is building the solid brand foundation. This means that before you create your website, before you create your copy, before you create your products, before you create your services, before you create advertisements, you've got to narrow down and really build their solid brand foundation, because every single thing that you are going to do stems from what you discover at this first stage. But then the next part and the ongoing part is really getting your brand seen. And this is where marketing comes into play. Now, I truly believe that marketing is just communication. It is just you communicating with your ideal customer, just like we talked about in the last step, in a very effective way. And so this is why when you are building your brand, it's so important to A, be specific with your ideal customer, and B, craft messages that clearly articulate what your brand provides and why it is beneficial / important / crucial to your ideal customer. Once you can do that, all of your content creation, all of your messaging on your sales pages, the copywriting that you might be putting in your advertisements, it becomes a million times easier. I recently worked with a client who came to me that said they were feeling really stuck in showing up online. They'd kind of hit a wall, and content creation was becoming really, really difficult. If you watched one of my previous videos from a few weeks ago, I talked about using free SEO tools to come up with content creation. But one of the key pieces in taking that step, using these free tools, is to first identify what it is you're actually doing. What are the specific areas that you are helping your ideal customer? Why is this beneficial to them? Why is this something that is very, very important to them? Because once you have clarity on these messages, you will then be able to communicate more clearly to your audience, which will, of course, improve your marketing. And as we know, marketing is basically how we get our brand seen and paid. At Brand Mary, I call these core brand messages. I mentioned these last week in the video, if you want to go ahead and watch that. And these core brand messages are basically umbrella messages for your brand that, as I mentioned, will really dictate what happens with all your copywriting, all your content creation, your website messaging, all of those pieces for your brand when you move into the marketing phase. But a lot of people skip this. And so they're building their brand, they're piecemealing their brand together, and they're not taking the time to really identify these particular pieces. And when they get to the marketing section, their brand gets stuck because their marketing isn't working. It's not resonating with their audience. Nobody's taking action. They're not getting engagement. They're not getting conversion. And this is a fundamental piece of the process. As I mentioned before, I have a video that clearly outlines the stages of the Build a Better Brand method, which is what I teach here at Brand Mary and have been teaching for the last 8 years of being an entrepreneur after I myself created a brand that wasn't authentic, wasn't aligned, and wasn't making me any freaking money. When I got down to it and went through this process myself, I started seeing results. After fine-tuning it and working with hundreds of clients, this is now the process that I have been teaching for years. If you want to dive into that video, I've linked it below, or you can also check it out here on the screen somewhere. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your brand, I also have my entire Build a Better Brand method packaged inside of my signature course, You Branded. Because what did we talk about in the very beginning of this video? Your brand has to start with you. It has to start with your mission, your values, your authenticity, your story. Because one of the most crucial pieces of marketing today is storytelling, digital storytelling. And one of the best ways to get started with digital storytelling is to know your story. So not only does building a brand centered around you at the beginning help you create that brand filter that's going to allow you to create an authentic and aligned brand, but it's also going to give you some fundamental pieces to start incorporating digital storytelling into your marketing strategy so you can get paid very quickly. And that's one of the things that I did early on in my business. All I really had before I had testimonials, before I had social proof, I had my story. And I got to share that, and I got to start building connections with my audience, attracting my ideal customer. And the rest is history. Well, not really. We're not done here. We're still moving forward. But building this aspect of your brand is incredibly important. If you want to get some more information on You Branded, you can go to brandmary.com/youbranded. That's YOUBRANDED. I've linked it below for you if you're ready to take that next step. I hope that this video was really helpful in helping you identify where your brand might be getting stuck and where you might need to go back and put some of those pieces together. And as I mentioned, that next video for you is available right here.